Ethan Calder, Mia Hargrave, and Karim Al-Farouk, three lives that should have never crossed paths. What started as a dream, a connection, and a promise spiraled into a nightmare so shocking, it defies belief. This is the story of how one man's obsession with a digital fantasy led him to the heart of Dubai and into a trap from which there was no escape. Please subscribe for daily new update of crime story and watch till end. Ethan Calder lived a life that most people never notice. He was 32 years old and had spent nearly a decade working the same warehouse job in a small town in Ohio, USA. His shifts were long and exhausting, usually starting late in the evening and ending before sunrise. The building was loud, cold, and filled with the sound of machines. Every night felt exactly the same, and every morning ended with Ethan walking home alone while the rest of the city slept. His life moved forward, but nothing ever changed. Ethan rented a small apartment with bare walls and old furniture he had collected over the years. He didn't decorate much because he never felt like the place truly belonged to him. His phone was his only escape. After work, he would lie on his bed, scrolling endlessly through social media. He watched other people living lives that felt exciting and meaningful. Luxury vacations, perfect relationships, expensive clothes, and confident smiles filled his screen. Compared to them, his own life felt small and pointless. He had once dreamed of becoming someone important. As a teenager, he believed he would travel the world or build something successful, but years passed, opportunities slipped away, and fear kept him from taking risks. Friends moved on, got married, or changed cities. Ethan stayed behind. Phone calls became rare, and invitations slowly stopped coming. No one blamed him, but no one waited for him either. Online, things felt different. No one saw his tired eyes or worn-out hands. He could be anyone he wanted. Algorithms seemed to understand his loneliness better than people ever had. Late one night, while scrolling half asleep, a profile appeared that instantly caught his attention. The images were bright and flawless. Tall buildings touched the clouds. Expensive cars reflected city lights. A woman stood at the center of it all, smiling with confidence and elegance. The location tag said Dubai. Ethan paused. He scrolled back up and looked again. Something about the profile felt personal, as if it had been placed there just for him. It wasn't only the beauty or wealth shown in the photos. It was the feeling of a different life, one where success and admiration came naturally. He followed the account without thinking too much about it. Within days, his feed began to change. More luxury, more travel, more perfection. Ethan started checking his phone first thing after waking up and last thing before sleeping. Work became something he simply endured so he could return to his screen. He felt a strange sense of hope growing inside him, a belief that maybe his ordinary life wasn't permanent. Maybe it was only the beginning of something unbelievable. He didn't know it yet, but that single moment of attention would quietly pull him toward a future he never imagined and a path that would not let him turn back. The woman's profile quickly became the center of Ethan's online world. Every post felt carefully designed, showing a life filled with elegance, confidence, and endless opportunity. She appeared in designer clothes, standing near luxury hotels, desert resorts, and private yachts. The captions were calm and thoughtful, often talking about ambition, loyalty, and destiny. Ethan felt as if those words were speaking directly to him, even though thousands of others could see them too. Soon, the account followed him back. That small notification changed how he saw everything. He checked her page repeatedly, studying each image and detail. The lifestyle she showed felt far beyond his reality, yet somehow reachable. She shared posts about hard work and self-belief, claiming that true success came to those who dared to leave comfort behind. Ethan found himself agreeing with every idea without questioning the source. Over time, her content shifted slightly. The posts became more personal. She shared stories about feeling misunderstood, about not trusting easily, and about appreciating honest people. Ethan believed this was proof that she was real and emotionally deep. He felt connected to her struggles, even though her life looked perfect on the surface. The contrast made her feel more human, not less. Ethan began shaping his own online presence to match what he thought she admired. He posted motivational quotes and photos that suggested confidence, even if he didn't feel it. Each like or reaction from her account gave him a rush of excitement. It felt like validation he had never received in real life. Slowly, his emotional balance started depending on that digital attention. The woman presented herself as someone who valued American culture and discipline. She often shared posts praising the USA for its opportunities while claiming that Dubai was where global dreams were built. Ethan took this as a sign that their worlds were meant to cross. He believed fate was guiding him toward something bigger than himself. He stopped questioning why someone so successful would notice him at all. What Ethan didn't realize was how carefully the illusion was constructed. The photos were polished to hide small inconsistencies. Locations were never tagged live. Time zones never matched perfectly, but Ethan ignored these details. His desire to believe was stronger than logic. Each post reinforced the idea that she was the woman he had been waiting for his entire life. As days turned into weeks, Ethan's thoughts became consumed by her presence. Work felt meaningless compared to the future he imagined. He believed that meeting her would unlock a life of wealth, love, and respect. The woman became more than a person to him. She became a symbol of escape, success, and rebirth. By the time Ethan realized how deeply invested he had become, his sense of reality was already shifting. The dream woman from Dubai was no longer just someone he followed online. She had become the center of his hopes, and unknowingly, the first step toward a trap he could no longer see. Ethan's daily routine slowly collapsed as his focus moved almost entirely to his online life. He stopped going out after work and began turning down overtime shifts, even though he needed the money. His phone was always in his hand, and his thoughts were always elsewhere. The future he imagined online felt more real than the present he lived in. Every quiet moment was filled with planning a life that did not yet exist. His spending habits changed first. Ethan began buying better clothes, not because he needed them, but because he wanted to look like someone worthy of attention. He upgraded his phone and improved his internet connection, telling himself it was an investment in his future. He even started reading about business, luxury lifestyles, and international travel, believing knowledge would prepare him for the world he was about to enter. Friends noticed his absence, but stopped asking questions when he didn't respond. Family calls went unanswered, and when he did reply, his words felt distant and rushed. Ethan believed no one around him could understand what he was building. In his mind, they were stuck, while he was moving forward. The isolation felt justified, even necessary. The woman's online presence became more suggestive of change. Her posts focused on taking risks, leaving old lives behind, and trusting destiny over fear. She shared stories of people who transformed their lives by making one brave decision. Ethan absorbed every message as instruction. He began seeing his current life as something holding him back rather than protecting him. He started saving aggressively, skipping meals and selling personal items. Old electronics, furniture, and even sentimental belongings were listed online. Each sale felt like progress. He told himself sacrifices were temporary, but success would be permanent. The idea of meeting her became tied to his sense of self-worth. Without that future, his past felt unbearable. The obsession reached a point where Ethan no longer questioned outcomes. He imagined stepping into a new identity the moment he left the USA. Dubai represented more than a destination. It symbolized rebirth. He believed that once he arrived, doors would open naturally, guided by the woman who had inspired him. Logic slowly gave way to hope, and hope turned into certainty. Signs of danger appeared, but Ethan dismissed them. Sudden changes in online activity, delayed responses, and vague promises should have raised concern. Instead, he interpreted them as signs of a busy, successful life. He convinced himself that patience was part of the test. Every doubt was reframed as fear trying to stop him from growing. By the time the idea of travel became unavoidable, Ethan had already crossed an invisible line. His entire identity was now linked to a future he had never seen in person. Turning back felt impossible. He believed he was too far invested to fail, unaware that the deeper he went, the harder the fall would become. The decision to travel felt sudden to everyone except Ethan. In his mind, the journey had been building for months. He booked the flight late at night, his hands shaking as he entered his card details. Nearly all his savings disappeared in a single transaction. Instead of fear, he felt relief. The choice made everything feel real. There was no turning back now, and that thought strangely comforted him. The days before departure passed in a blur. Ethan packed lightly, leaving behind most of his possessions. The apartment looked empty, almost forgotten, as if he had already erased himself from that place. He quit his job without much explanation and ignored the uneasy feeling that followed. He told himself that successful people didn't cling to old routines. They moved forward without hesitation. The flight from the USA to Dubai was the longest journey Ethan had ever taken. As the plane crossed oceans and time zones, his excitement mixed with exhaustion. He imagined what his life would look like once he landed. He believed someone would be waiting for him, ready to guide him into a world of luxury and purpose. Each hour in the air felt like a step closer to becoming the person he had always wanted to be. Dubai appeared beneath the plane like a vision from the screen he had stared at for so long. Tall buildings rose from the desert, glowing under the sun. Everything looked expensive, polished, and unreal. At the airport, the crowds moved quickly and confidently. Ethan stood still for a moment, overwhelmed by how small he suddenly felt. He checked his phone repeatedly, expecting instructions or reassurance. None came. Minutes turned into hours as Ethan waited, convincing himself there had been a misunderstanding. He booked a cheap hotel nearby, telling himself it was only temporary. Messages continued to arrive online, promising meetings that never materialized. Each excuse sounded reasonable enough to believe. He trusted the plan more than his instincts. Days passed, and Ethan moved from one low-cost hotel to another. The city remained beautiful, but it no longer felt welcoming. He avoided expensive areas and watched luxury from a distance. His money began to shrink faster than expected. The confidence he once felt slowly turned into anxiety, but he refused to admit failure. Despite everything, Ethan stayed hopeful. He believed that success required patience and endurance. The woman's online presence remained active, still showing perfection and wealth. He told himself that real opportunities took time. Leaving Dubai without achieving anything felt worse than waiting in uncertainty. At night, alone in unfamiliar rooms, doubt crept in. He questioned small details he had once ignored, but every time fear rose, he pushed it away. Returning to the USA with nothing would mean accepting that the dream was never real. Ethan chose belief over truth, unaware that each passing day was tightening a trap he could no longer escape. Ethan's doubts finally grew too heavy to ignore. One night, sitting alone in a dim hotel room, he began looking more closely at the online world he had trusted without question. He studied the woman's photos one by one, noticing details he had overlooked before. Reflections didn't match locations. Backgrounds repeated in different images. Timestamps didn't line up with events she claimed were happening in real time. What once felt magical now looked carefully staged. He started searching pieces of her images online. Within minutes, his heart sank. The same photos appeared on different accounts, under different names, in different countries. Some images were years old. Others belonged to influencers who had no connection to Dubai at all. The elegant life he believed in began to collapse. The woman was not one person. She was a digital creation, assembled to appear perfect and trustworthy. As Ethan dug deeper, he found forums and posts from strangers describing similar experiences. They had followed the same profile style, believed the same promises, and traveled chasing opportunity. Some lost money, some lost documents, others lost contact with family entirely. The pattern was clear, and Ethan was part of it. He realized the dream had been bait, and he had walked straight into it. Fear replaced hope. Every message he had received now felt threatening. The delayed meetings, vague instructions, and constant encouragement to stay patient suddenly made sense. The longer he stayed, the weaker he became. His funds were low, his passport was no longer always in his possession. And his movements felt monitored in subtle ways. Even the city seemed different, less bright, and more watchful. Ethan tried to leave. That was when the situation turned dangerous. Plans fell apart without explanation. Help was promised but never delivered. Each attempt to regain control was quietly blocked. The system that had guided him to Dubai now worked against him. He understood that the trap was not just online. It was physical, organized, and intentional. Sleep became difficult. Every sound outside his room felt like a warning. He avoided crowded places and stopped using public Wi-Fi, afraid of being tracked. The confidence he once had was gone, replaced by survival instincts he never thought he would need. He realized how alone he truly was, thousands of miles from the USA, with no one aware of his situation. The worst realization came last. Ethan understood that the scam was never about love, it was about control. The illusion was designed to identify people willing to sacrifice everything for a dream. Once they arrived, they were no longer customers. They were assets. And Ethan, blinded by belief, had volunteered himself without knowing the cost. Ethan's online presence ended without warning. The accounts he once checked obsessively showed no new activity from him. His last post was vague and uncharacteristic, lacking the hopeful tone he usually forced. After that, silence followed. Days passed, then weeks. In the USA, the quiet absence slowly became alarming. Family members noticed unanswered messages and calls that went straight to voicemail. This behavior was not normal for someone who had once been constantly online. A missing person report was eventually filed. Authorities began with basic checks, reviewing financial records, travel history, and digital activity. They confirmed Ethan had flown to Dubai but found no record of his return. His bank statements revealed unusual transactions made shortly before his disappearance. Small amounts sent to unfamiliar accounts, followed by sudden withdrawals, suggested manipulation rather than choice. Investigators reviewed his social media history and noticed a dramatic shift in behavior months before he left the USA. His interactions showed signs of emotional dependency and isolation. The profile that had influenced him was already gone, erased completely, leaving no direct trace. What remained were fragments of conversations, saved images, and patterns that pointed to an organized operation. Dubai authorities confirmed Ethan's arrival but could not track his movements after his hotel stays ended. The hotels he used were short-term and low-cost, leaving little documentation behind. Staff remembered him as quiet and anxious, often checking his phone. There were no official complaints, no reports of violence, and no witnesses who saw him leave the city. He had simply faded from records. As weeks turned into months, the case grew colder. Without a body or confirmed crime scene, progress stalled. Investigators suspected Ethan had been forced into illegal labor or confined somewhere outside the city. Similar cases from other countries revealed the same pattern. Victims were lured, isolated, and then absorbed into hidden networks that operated beyond public view. Ethan's digital footprint told a darker story. Messages sent shortly before his disappearance suggested fear and urgency, though nothing was stated clearly. It was as if he knew he was being watched. His phone was never recovered, and his passport was not found among his belongings. These details suggested his freedom had been taken gradually, without force, through dependence and control. Back in the USA, his name slowly disappeared from daily conversations and news cycles. No headlines followed. No public updates were released. His case became one of many unresolved files, marked by unanswered questions and limited jurisdiction. The silence surrounding his disappearance was as disturbing as the act itself. Ethan Calder did not vanish in a dramatic moment. He was erased slowly, piece by piece, through trust placed in the wrong hands. By the time anyone realized the danger, the system that trapped him had already moved on, leaving behind only uncertainty and a trail that ended in the shadows. Months passed before Ethan Calder's fate became clearer, though even then, the answers were grim and partial. A body was discovered outside Dubai, in a rundown industrial area far from the glittering cityscape Ethan had imagined. Identification took weeks. Authorities had to rely on dental records and digital traces to confirm who it was. When the name matched, it shocked those who had followed the case, but the details revealed a story far more harrowing than anyone could have predicted. Ethan had been trapped almost immediately upon leaving his hotels. The woman's profile, the allure of luxury and love, had been a lure to draw him into a complex network of exploitation. Once in Dubai, he was forced into illegal work that exploited his desperation and naivety. The jobs were grueling, dangerous, and isolated. Attempts to escape were met with subtle but effective threats. Surveillance, social pressure, and the constant fear of losing even the little freedom he had left made resistance nearly impossible. The circumstances of his final days were horrifying. Ethan had tried multiple times to reach the authorities or contact family abroad, but his movements were controlled, and access to communication was limited. Each failed attempt intensified the psychological pressure. According to investigators, the environment he was trapped in was designed to break him down, erasing his confidence and independence so completely that submission became the only survival strategy. When he attempted to flee, the network acted swiftly. They tracked him down using methods that appeared almost invisible. The industrial area where his body was found was reportedly a location used for confinement and punishment of those who resisted. Details suggested that his death was not instantaneous, but rather the tragic result of a combination of exhaustion, mistreatment, and neglect. What had begun as a dream ended in an almost unimaginable reality, a cruel twist no one could have foreseen when Ethan first clicked follow. Forensic investigators noted that the signs of trauma were consistent with confinement and forced labor. It became clear that the woman's online identity was never intended to meet anyone in person. Her existence had been entirely virtual, a mask for a highly organized network that preyed on vulnerable individuals. Every post, every message, every promise had been carefully engineered to manipulate belief and trust. The shocking nature of Ethan's death sent ripples across social media once the story leaked internationally. People began comparing his experience with other missing persons cases linked to similar schemes. The network had likely ensnared dozens more, many of whom were still trapped, while others had vanished entirely. The realization that something so meticulously digital could have such lethal consequences stunned the public. Ethan's case revealed the chilling effectiveness of modern manipulation. A life lived mostly online, when combined with isolation and vulnerability, could become the perfect trap. The woman he believed in, the future he chased, and the city he dreamed of were never real. They were tools designed to control and ultimately destroy. In the end, Ethan Calder's story was a warning. The line between fantasy and danger can be far thinner than anyone imagines, and following a dream blindly can sometimes lead to the unthinkable. The aftermath of Ethan Calder's death rippled far beyond his family and friends. News outlets in the USA and abroad reported the story with shock, but details were scarce. The Dubai authorities confirmed the identity of the body and shared limited information, citing the ongoing investigation into the network that had ensnared him. Even so, the narrative that emerged painted a chilling picture of modern exploitation, where trust and desire were weaponized. In the United States, Ethan's family struggled to process what had happened. They had watched him slip away, first emotionally, then physically, as he became consumed by the illusion of a life in Dubai. Friends who had once been close tried to make sense of the choices he had made, wondering how a man they knew so well could be drawn so completely into a trap. The answer lay in the subtlety of manipulation. It was not just about money or promises of luxury, but about hope, validation, and the longing to escape a life that felt small. Authorities continued to investigate the scam network, but progress was slow. The digital trail Ethan had followed was meticulously erased, and the people behind it were careful to leave no identifiable patterns. Investigators learned that similar operations had targeted Americans and Europeans before, often involving fake online personas, staged social media accounts, and intricate schemes to lure people abroad. Many victims were coerced into labor, trapped in illegal operations, or disappeared entirely. Ethan's story became a case study in the dangers of online obsession and blind trust. Social media itself became a focus. Experts warned that the algorithms designed to connect people also made them vulnerable. Profiles like the one Ethan followed were often created to exploit emotional needs, playing on loneliness, ambition, and desire. The public began to understand how online interactions could be more than just harmless distractions. They could be traps, carefully constructed and nearly invisible until it was too late. Ethan's story, while tragic, left a lasting impact. It raised awareness about the risks of following dreams without verification and the power of digital manipulation. Families and friends started talking more openly about the signs of online deception. Workshops, Webinars and articles highlighted how people could be drawn into elaborate scams, emphasizing the importance of critical thinking and skepticism, even in situations that seem deeply personal or romantic. Yet the network that destroyed Ethan's life remained largely unpunished. Those responsible had vanished, leaving only shadows behind. It was a stark reminder that while individual stories could teach lessons, justice was not always immediate or complete. Ethan Calder became both a cautionary tale and a symbol, a representation of how easily vulnerability could be exploited in a connected world. The final lesson was unsettling but clear. Dreams are powerful, but so is deception. Ethan's desire for connection, adventure, and recognition had been twisted into a tool for exploitation. What began as love and hope ended in tragedy, showing the world that belief alone is not enough to protect against manipulation. His story would linger, a silent warning to those who chase visions of perfection online without questioning who or what is truly behind them. Ethan Calder's life ended far from home, but the story he left behind traveled across continents. It reminded the world that sometimes the most dangerous journeys are the ones we take chasing dreams that were never real. The consequences of blind faith in a digital world were, in the end, both heartbreaking and unforgettable.